700,000 years ago, Earth was a vastly different world. Massive ice sheets covered much of the Northern Hemisphere, sea levels were lower, and the climate oscillated between freezing glacial periods and warmer interglacials. This was the Middle Pleistocene epoch, a time when our ancient ancestors faced challenges that would forge the very essence of what it means to be human. The humans living during this period were not yet Homo sapiens. They were our evolutionary cousins and direct ancestors, species like Homo heidelbergensis in Africa and Europe, and Homo erectus in Asia. These were the bridge species, the critical link between the more primitive early humans and modern humans who would emerge much later. Understanding their lives gives us profound insights into our own origins and the incredible journey of human evolution. Let's step back in time and explore how these prehistoric humans survived in a world of predators, harsh climates, and constant uncertainty. We'll discover the innovations that allowed them to thrive, the social structures that bound them together, and the evolutionary pressures that shaped their bodies and minds. At 700,000 years ago, the global climate was locked in a glacial period. Imagine vast ice sheets stretching across what is now Canada, northern Europe, and parts of Asia. These glaciers were several kilometers thick, locking away enormous amounts of water and causing sea levels to drop by as much as 120 meters below current levels. This exposed land bridges that connected continents, allowing humans and animals to migrate to new territories. In Africa, where much of human evolution took place, the climate was also affected. Regions that are now deserts experienced periods of increased rainfall, creating green corridors and savannas teeming with life. The environment constantly shifted, forcing human populations to adapt or perish. This climatic instability was actually a driving force in human evolution, selecting for intelligence, adaptability, and innovation. The humans of this era had evolved significantly from their Australopithecine ancestors. Homo heidelbergensis, which appeared around 700,000 to 600,000 years ago, had a brain size averaging 1,200 cubic centimeters, approaching the size of modern human brains. They stood between 5 and 6 feet tall and had a robust, muscular build adapted for the physical demands of their lifestyle. Their skulls were thick with prominent brow ridges, and their faces projected forward more than ours do today. These physical characteristics weren't just cosmetic differences. The robust build provided strength for hunting and butchering large animals. The large brain size supported more complex thought processes, better planning abilities, and enhanced social coordination. The prominent brow ridges may have played a role in social communication, as the movement of eyebrows is important in human nonverbal expression. Fire was perhaps the single most transformative technology in human prehistory, and by 700,000 years ago, humans had begun to master its use. Evidence from sites like Gesher Benat Yaakov in Israel shows controlled use of fire dating back to around 790,000 years ago. Fire provided warmth during cold glacial nights, protection from predators who feared the flames, and most importantly, a means to cook food. Cooking was revolutionary. It made tough plant foods digestible, killed parasites in meat, and broke down proteins, making nutrients more accessible. This meant humans could extract more energy from their food, supporting larger brains and reducing the time needed for chewing and digestion. Cooking also had social implications. Gathering around a fire created a focal point for social interaction, storytelling, and the transmission of knowledge between generations. The technology required to make and maintain fire demonstrated sophisticated cognitive abilities. Early humans needed to understand which materials burned well, how to create sparks through striking stones, and how to keep fires alive through careful tending. This knowledge had to be learned, remembered, and taught to others, indicating complex language and teaching abilities. Toolmaking had evolved considerably by this time. The dominant tool technology was the Acheulean tradition, characterized by large, symmetrical hand axes. These teardrop-shaped tools were remarkably sophisticated, requiring significant planning and skill to produce. Creating an Acheulean hand axe involved understanding the properties of different stones, the ability to visualize the final product before beginning, and the fine motor control to execute precise strikes. These hand axes were multi-purpose tools used for butchering animals, digging for roots and tubers, woodworking, and possibly as weapons. The symmetry of these tools is particularly interesting to archaeologists because it suggests an aesthetic sense and attention to form that goes beyond pure functionality. Some researchers believe that well-made hand axes may have served as social signals, demonstrating skill and intelligence to potential mates or allies. Beyond hand axes, humans created scrapers for cleaning hides, sharp flakes for cutting meat, and wooden spears for hunting. The Skåningen spears from Germany, dating to about 300,000 years ago, show that by then humans were crafting sophisticated wooden weapons, and the technology likely had deeper roots. These spears were carefully shaped from spruce trees, with the weight balanced for throwing, demonstrating remarkable engineering understanding. Hunting large game was central to the survival strategy of prehistoric humans. The megafauna of the Middle Pleistocene included species that would seem fantastic to us today. In Africa, there were enormous elephants, hippos, and various species of large antelope. In Europe and Asia, humans encountered woolly mammoths, woolly rhinoceroses, giant deer, cave bears, and massive bison. Taking down such animals required cooperation, planning, and courage. Humans likely used a combination of strategies including ambush hunting near water sources, driving animals over cliffs or into marshes where they became trapped, and perhaps even endurance hunting, where humans used their superior stamina to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. The social organization required for cooperative hunting was complex. Hunters needed to communicate silently using gestures, coordinate their movements, understand each other's roles, and share the spoils according to social rules. Successful hunts would have been celebrated, reinforcing social bonds and creating shared experiences that strengthened group identity. Butchering a large animal was a massive undertaking that involved the entire community. Every part of the animal was used: meat for food, bones for tools and marrow, hides for clothing and shelter, sinews for binding, and organs for various purposes. This efficient use of resources demonstrates both necessity and ingenuity. Plant foods remained crucial to the prehistoric human diet. Humans were omnivores, and the gathering of fruits, nuts, seeds, roots, tubers, and leafy vegetables provided essential nutrients, especially during seasons when game was scarce. Women likely played a primary role in gathering, developing extensive knowledge of plant seasonality, locations, and properties. This botanical knowledge was sophisticated and passed down through generations. Humans needed to know which plants were edible and which were poisonous, when different plants were ready for harvest, how to process certain foods to make them edible, and which plants had medicinal properties. This accumulation of knowledge represents an early form of science and demonstrates the importance of cultural transmission. The combination of hunting and gathering created a diverse, nutritious diet that supported the energy demands of large brains and active lifestyles. The flexibility to exploit different food sources in different seasons and environments was a key survival strategy. Prehistoric humans lived in small, mobile groups, probably consisting of 20 to 50 individuals. These bands likely included multiple family units with complex kinship relationships. Living in groups provided numerous advantages, including cooperative hunting and gathering, shared childcare, protection from predators, and the pooling of knowledge and skills. Social relationships within these groups were complex. Hierarchies existed, but were likely based on age, skill, and personality rather than formal structures. Leaders emerged based on their abilities as hunters, their knowledge, or their social skills. Conflicts had to be managed through social mechanisms because the group's survival depended on cooperation. Altruism and sharing were essential values. When a hunter made a kill, the meat was shared according to social rules. This sharing created reciprocal obligations and strengthened social bonds. Those who refused to share or who violated social norms faced consequences ranging from social disapproval to ostracism, which in the dangerous prehistoric world could mean death. Evidence suggests that prehistoric humans cared for sick and injured group members. Fossilized remains show individuals who survived serious injuries that would have required extended care from others. This compassion and willingness to support vulnerable group members is a deeply human characteristic that has ancient roots. Language was developing during this period, though we can't know exactly what form it took. The complex behaviors we see, from coordinated hunting to sophisticated toolmaking and the transmission of cultural knowledge, all suggest that some form of language existed. It may not have been as complex as modern human language, but it was certainly more advanced than the communication systems of other primates. Language allowed for the sharing of information about distant events, planning for future activities, teaching complex skills, and the creation of shared stories and cultural knowledge. The evolution of language was closely tied to brain development, social complexity, and the need for more sophisticated communication in increasingly complex societies. Children in prehistoric times faced high mortality rates, but those who survived underwent an extended childhood compared to other primates. This long childhood served an important purpose. It provided time for learning the complex skills and knowledge needed for survival. Children learned by observing adults, through play that mimicked adult activities, and through direct instruction. Play fighting taught combat and hunting skills. Playing with tools developed fine motor skills. Listening to stories around the fire transmitted cultural knowledge and social values. This investment in childhood education was crucial for human success because so much of human behavior is learned rather than instinctive. The physical environment of 700,000 years ago presented constant challenges. Humans had to find or create shelter from the elements. In some areas, natural shelters like caves and rock overhangs provided protection. In open landscapes, humans constructed simple shelters using branches, hides, and grasses. These structures required knowledge of materials and construction techniques. Clothing became increasingly important, especially during glacial periods and in colder regions. Animal hides were scraped clean, perhaps treated to make them more pliable, and fashioned into simple garments. The ability to create clothing allowed humans to expand into colder environments that would otherwise have been uninhabitable. Water sources were critical for survival. Humans settled near rivers, lakes, and springs, and their movements often followed water availability. Understanding seasonal water patterns and knowing where to find water during dry periods was vital knowledge. The constant threat of predators shaped human behavior and evolution. Large carnivores including lions, leopards, hyenas, saber-toothed cats, and giant bears competed with humans for food and occasionally preyed on humans themselves. This danger promoted several adaptations, including living in groups for protection, using fire to create safe spaces, developing weapons, and maintaining vigilance. Humans became expert at reading animal behavior, understanding predator patterns, and avoiding dangerous situations. This required intelligence, observation skills, and the ability to learn from experience and from the knowledge of others. The evolutionary pressure of predation may have contributed to the development of larger brains and enhanced cognitive abilities. Migration was a constant feature of prehistoric human life. Groups moved seasonally to follow game herds, to access different plant foods as they came into season, and to find better shelter or water. Over longer timescales, human populations expanded into new territories, driven by population pressure, environmental changes, or simply the human impulse to explore. By 700,000 years ago, humans had spread across Africa and into parts of Europe and Asia. Each new environment presented unique challenges and opportunities, driving further adaptation and innovation. Populations in different regions began to develop distinct characteristics, though they remained part of the same evolving human lineage. The evolutionary changes occurring during this period were significant. Natural selection favored individuals with larger brains, better manual dexterity, more efficient bipedal locomotion, and enhanced social and cognitive abilities. The harsh environment meant that small advantages in intelligence, strength, or social skills could mean the difference between survival and death. These selection pressures were creating the foundation for the eventual emergence of modern humans. The cognitive abilities developing during this time, including abstract thinking, long-term planning, symbolic thought, and complex language, would eventually lead to art, religion, and all the achievements of human civilization. Life 700,000 years ago was harsh, dangerous, and uncertain, yet it was also a time of remarkable human achievement. Our ancestors were not primitive brutes merely struggling to survive. They were intelligent, adaptable, social beings who created complex technologies, developed rich cultural traditions, and showed compassion and cooperation. They mastered fire, crafted sophisticated tools, hunted massive animals through teamwork and strategy, and raised their children with care and patience. They faced predators, harsh climates, and constant challenges with courage and ingenuity. Every innovation they created, every social structure they developed, and every piece of knowledge they accumulated was a step on the long evolutionary journey that would eventually lead to us. Understanding these prehistoric humans helps us appreciate our own nature. The drives that motivated them, the fears they faced, the bonds they formed, and the curiosity that pushed them to explore and innovate are still part of us today. We are the inheritors of their struggles and their triumphs, the products of hundreds of thousands of years of evolution and cultural development. The story of life 700,000 years ago is ultimately a story about survival, adaptation, and the emergence of humanity. It reminds us that we are part of a long continuum of life on Earth, connected to our ancient ancestors through an unbroken chain of survival and reproduction stretching back through time. Their legacy lives in our DNA, in our behaviors, and in the very structure of our brains. We are, in a very real sense, the prehistoric humans who survived and evolved, carrying their story forward into an unknown future.